I'm calling the meeting to order. And do I have a volunteer to take minutes? Oh, don't overwhelm me. Yeah, Terry did them last
Yeah,
time.
you kept them on one page.
Well, if you adjust that font, you know.
I can take minutes today.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
Is the owl working?
Oh, good point.
Yes, because Shirley, I know, wanted to attend.
She's on. Can you hear us, Shirley? She's there.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Shirley.
She's muted.
Okay.
She's got background noise.
Yeah.
She can hear us.
Ed, I'm gonna turn it over to you, right away.
Okay. I will pass these out. You can read them later, but it's just kind of the same update, but, as you guys know, in June, we hired Pathways Consulting to work on the engineering for Lakeside Park. Just wanted to give a little bit of an update. I've been working with them since then. We walked the park. He did have a few concerns in the middle of the grass area park that there may be some actual identified wetlands in there. So he brought in a wetland scientist to review that. I haven't got a map of that, but they have delineated where the possible wetlands are now.
You mean, with the what we're calling
Yeah, they
the
can-
platform area?
No, there's some in where the trail was.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, and actually, I don't know where they are, so I can't answer
Okay.
that question, but he
We'll
did
find
say
out.
some of the wetlands delineation may mean some little adjustments to the
Okay.
trail. So he's been trying to get a hold of Mike Burns. They were supposed to meet this week and didn't end up meeting, and they're just having trouble communicating with each other. I think they're both busy trying to get together, but he wanted to get with Mike to plan the adjustments that need to be made to that trail. I did tell him today if they continue to have problems to make a recommendation of what it should look like and get it back to us so we can keep this moving.
Maybe they should do that anyhow.
Yeah, we'll see. I
Yeah,
kind of told them let's just keep it going. They're at the place. I sent out an email to Doug at least and Meredith that showed the topographic spots that they're putting. The undulations in the grass all have to be topoed out and identified. So as they're putting together the engineering for the stormwater permit, they can show where water's gonna flow and what's gonna happen for DES.
You say the grass, you're talking about the brushy area?
Everything that's not parking.
Okay.
Actually, they're doing the whole thing is
Okay.
topoed. So they're working on that. Our plan when we went to RFP in June was to get design and permitting done this year, planning for construction next spring. So that's what we're still aiming for and shooting for. And, you know, our plan is to put out an RFP that construction will need to be done by August of 2024. So we have a month to finish up paperwork and get it turned in on time.
And does the, what they're working on as far as, you know, our trail went kind of looping parallel to the shoreline, so when they try to even things out, what do they do with where they do want water? Are they wanting water to drain down towards the lake or just sink into the ground or?
They'll be capturing those types of things. Any of the impervious surfaces that we put in, we have to capture that stormwater as best as possible. So
So it'll be looking to figure out ways to make it go down and not underneath the trail or something like that. It would just be going down wherever that is.
yeah, I mean, they'll figure that out. That's what the
Okay.
engineers do.
Okay.
but Penny, the grant was, one of the bases of the grant was to take the water, the stormwater and runoff away from the lake.
Yeah.
So that's the
So most
ultimate
of it'll
goal.
be contained. We obviously don't want to be pushing it towards the lake. If it is going towards the lake, we'll be putting in some gardens and things to soak it up before. it gets there.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they're using the exact same plan we are, but the parking lot is adding impervious surfaces and the trail is an impervious surface. So we gotta deal with that stormwater and put together a plan that DES will approve.
Okay.
So it sounds like they're very close.
They're working through the process of
Oh.
getting this done and under the calendar guidelines that we put in the RFP to get it approved for construction next year.
Okay.
I would think that the, current parking lot is impervious already.
I'm
When
sure
you
it,
said adding, it's like, we're adding some for sure, but not most of the parking area that's there now is impervious.
So the new design should actually reduce the amount of it.
That was the ultimate Mersky goal, I know.
Ed, can I ask, can this pathways contract be covered in the amount budgeted, or do we know?
absolutely not. I saw that and I about had a heart attack. You can't get an engineer to return your phone call for $5,000.
Well, there's more than five in the
Okay.
budget. There's something for engineering and something for architecture, and there's about $20,000.
Okay, it looks like it's gonna be about $37,000 total with the wetland scientists and the engineering and the permitting and everything.
I guess that was my main concern.
It's, actually, he sent me something today that said $37,250. Barring, we don't have to get into any wetlands issues. If we get into wetlands permitting, the sky's the limit after that.
So
So
we're gonna have
that's why
to,
he's really working hard to figure out how we may be able to meander around wetlands and not have to get into any wetland permitting. And
Like meandering around archaeological ruins.
Yep.
Maybe that's easier.
Cha-ching.
Do you have any, further information on the Enfield, Shaker Village Scenic Byway grant?
I continue to work on that. I can almost guarantee at this point that the path will not be built. It'll be engineered. And mainly, unless I can get literally an act of Congress, they put a time frame that's unreasonable on it, and then they also put what they call the LPA process as a mandate, which is a state and federal approval process that, I mean, they take a simple hiring of an engineer goes from a 1 week, really easy process to probably a 2 to 3 month process of getting approvals back and forth on every step of the process. So working with the state, we think under the current timeline that we can get the project approved and engineered, but probably not obligated to be built by the September 24th timeline. And,
Yeah, that's a bit much.
but I am going to lobby and push our federal senators and representatives to see if we can get that act of Congress to extend that deadline.
Well, it is election year after all.
And I assume you know that the Shaker Museum is all for it, and so any
Yeah.
support you need from them, I'm sure they'd be happy to give.
No, but we've been talking about a modification to the trail down on that end, which will help them out, so.
Speaking of the Shaker Museum, they were just, selected as one of the 7 to save, which is wonderful. The acquisition of the La Salette property. So that's another little carrot.
So with that, the only other thing I wanna talk about, if I have a few more minutes,
Yeah.
is, the non-native invasive species program that we put together and report is continuing to move forward. I put out an RFP for a consultant to help us with that project. It came back, we had one bidder on it. So I've talked to that bidder. I've re-released the RFP to see if we can get any more. If we do not, then we'll probably move forward with the contractor that put in, and we'll be bringing a contractor on board to work with us to create a plan. And then Patty's helping me, that we actually have been chosen to take this plan, and we're gonna talk some about the Lakeside Park project and what we've done there. And teach, I'll say, or present a non-native invasive species program to the New Hampshire Municipal Association as well, so.
What would the timing of that be?
What,
Of the,
which part?
getting the contractor and, getting started with that?
We're working on the contractor this year to be in place and to help us create an implementation plan to start in 2024.
Okay, so by the end of the year.
Yeah, next year we should be working on getting rid of some invasive species plants throughout the town, and it'll be a 4 to 5 year contract with them to work on the project.
Will there be any kind of incentive for private property owners to have a learning experience and work on their own property?
I don't know if there'll be an incentive program, but there'll be education,
Encouragement,
encouragement.
yeah.
Yeah. And we've already kind of started that, but we'll continue doing that, and we'll continue partnering with the Mascoma Lake Association and others as they bring that forward as well.
Okay, does anyone have anything else for Ed?
But when you say non-native, that excludes poison ivy, I assume.
It does. That's a
So we
native.
still have to come up.
It's not an invasive species.
Yeah.
Ah. Oh, if.
It's
It might not be
annoying.
something you want, but it's not an
Yeah.
invasive species. We can definitely,
It's a
I mean,
bigger
as a
plant,
committee,
though.
when we have that consultant on board, it might be worth talking to them
Yeah, give us a few
and seeing
hints.
if we can do that, but it won't be part of the non-native invasive species program, but that doesn't mean we can't add on to what we're doing there.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ed? Okay, then we'll move to the approval of the October 4th minutes. Thank you, Terry.
Move to approve?
Any corrections?
Any discussion or questions? Do I have a
Mine
second?
wasn't that good.
Sweet's always good.
Do I have a second for the minutes? No,
There's just one typo, if it matters,
okay.
on vandalism protection,
Mm-hmm.
the third sentence. Word camera has an extra letter in it. Sure.
Okay,
Oh, I see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, camera roll.
okay, okay, with
I
that
can fix that.
slight correction, shall we?
I'll amend my motion to move to approve as corrected.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Okay, the minutes are approved. Financial update, balance on hand.
There's been no change in the general funding, but we did get an additional donation to the Muskie Fund of $1,000, bringing the total Muskie Fund to $5,290 at this time.
So we ought to be able to plant some nice sized trees for that.
Now, while I have the floor and I'm not on the agenda otherwise, I'd like to report on my meeting with the select board. The committee voted to send me there to see if we could get them to accelerate the priority for the park. John Klug suggested that Ed write a one-page report on this planning, this permitting process, and that Ed has done that, and we just went over it, so thank you, Ed, and that's the gist of that. I would like, though, to mention that you are probably gonna have to raise some more money. If this fee of $37,250 is any indication, there's a distinct possibility that the final bill will be more than $250,000, which is the amount budgeted for the remainder of the project. So the committee may very well have to go back for another dip to our donors. That's fine. The donors, I think, will be receptive. But I'd like the committee to know now that my term on this committee ends in March or April of 2024, and I will ask that it not be renewed. So my suggestion to the committee is that you start thinking now about adding somebody who's interested in fundraising and capable of fundraising in the event that the additional funding is going to be required. I've got a big file of donor information, which I can simply put on a flash drive and hand to a person. And if you can come up with someone before March or April to add to the committee, I would urge that you do that, because then I can start turning my donor files over to that person. Thank you.
No, we'll be sad to see you go.
Right.
You've been just
Well,
the
I mean,
rock
yeah.
of this community. Yeah, no, you've been one of the rocks that hold this thing together.
Well, I'm not gone yet, but I'm just giving you
Thank you for not,
heads up.
okay. But thank you for your time.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, so fundraising, most people avoid it like the plague. I couldn't sell Girl Scout cookies, so it's not me.
This is not a difficult project to raise money for. It's a very gratifying thing when you ask somebody for $500 and they send you 1,000. So I'm whoever gets into this will probably enjoy it. I'm just saying, it's not gonna be me.
Okay. Definitely not gonna be me.
The responsibilities of the Mascoma Lakeside Park Committee seem to be blurred. I understand that we are an advisory committee only, but at what point does our months and years of working on this project and expertise, when does the select board listen? And how much do they take into consideration? Or do they just do whatever they want to do and I don't know.
Attending quite a number of select board meetings. Other than your presentation at the last one, I have not seen discussion of those, at many, if any, of those meetings. There may be more that I didn't attend, but, it's not been a frequent, source of, discussion consideration.
I was gonna say, there has not been a much advice that has been sent to them. And the ones that did get sent to them, the two plans of recommending moving forward were approved and moved forward. So
Yeah.
I'd say you have support of the select board.
Yeah.
And the town, we must remember that it was a vote of 136 to 6
Yeah.
to accept the gift of the park.
But that's quite a ways in the past.
Yes,
Yeah, and the town puts a lot into the park.
Yeah.
at the time of the acceptance of the park, the question arose, how much is it gonna cost the town? And Jim Taylor attended the town meeting and we had consulted with Jim Taylor and he said about $4,000 a year. At that time, the Sailing Club and Eva committed to $2,000 a year for 5 years to make up that 4,000. I would add that before it became a park, before any of this happened, the town was managing the land for DOT under some kind of DOT agreement. And the town mowed the grass and plowed the snow, even then, before it was ever Lakeside Park. So that predated that $4,000 figure.
I think that was the basis for that $4,000 figure.
Yeah, exactly. So, at any rate, the sailing club has been very good about paying their committed $2,000. We have gotten nothing from Eva. Doug has contacted Harry Trumbull a couple of times, haven't you, Doug?
Yeah,
And nothing happened. So there you have it. I mean, a pledge is a pledge. You can't get blood out of a stone. But it's too bad that Eva is not honoring their commitment that they made at the time of the parks being handed over to the town.
Has there been a presentation to anybody other than just Harry?
You went to the board meeting, didn't you?
yeah, I went to an Eva board meeting to encourage Eva to do some things.
4 o'clock, Jim Ward told me to show up, is that right?
What do you,
At the 10th district meeting?
that's it, leave me home. I'll be headed that way in a minute.
All right, thank you. This is here, and he said, yeah, I think so.
We didn't discuss this specific thing. That was more about historic preservation in general.
Okay.
I was trying to get Eva to take an interest in some of the properties in the downtown area that are neglected.
And why
And
the
Eva's
organization was
sitting-
founded.
They won't tell you this, but they're sitting on a lot of cash because the rental from the Greeley house keeps coming in every month and they keep putting it in the bank.
Well, I think that, I'm not sure exactly whether the 5 years is up for the sailing club or not, but it'd be another for the new fundraiser, somebody to come back to the board. And I'm happy to represent that specific part of the fundraising.
That's great.
But
Well, and in all fairness, the town has not pressed us to turn that money over to the town. It's still sitting, as far as I know, in the Mascoma Lakeside Park Trust Fund.
So what
There's
to
no-
do?
Plans of asking for it, so.
Yeah, so,
We can use that to help fund the park. We'll work together. I mean, the town's gonna take care of the park if they accept it.
yeah, but there was concern expressed at the select board meeting that we are a burden on the operating, the administrative costs of the town, even though our total capital funding was raised from other sources. We're an ongoing burden on the taxpayers. That point was made.
that point, but has it continued to be made? I haven't heard it on an
I didn't
ongoing
hear
basis.
much either.
It was made at the select board meeting when Doug spoke. That was one of the comments that was made. The expense of town employees. And of
Oh.
course, there's administrative, the park is gonna take up time but that was expressed,
As a burden.
as an expense.
Yeah.
As an expense.
So how do you put a value on the park? And how do
See,
you
I'd
weigh
have to
that
listen to the
expense?
minutes again, but I think there was a comment that it's not costing the town anything for this park, and I think the rebuttal was, yes, it is, really. And, our time here is costing a few $100s every meeting.
Yeah, sure.
And our time here is volunteering.
Yeah.
You know,
So I don't think, we don't need to get in the fight. As a town manager, we're going to support the park. We're gonna take care of it.
Yeah,
We're
that's
gonna do what
that's
we
been
need to
decided
do.
long ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
to split hairs over who's paying what, then we're not doing that. We're gonna take care of the park. We're gonna help get this park built. We're gonna do what we need to do.
But it will become more of a burden as more plantings go in and more decorative features, whatever they happen to be. And the trails, it'll become more of an operational.
Well, there's been some talk about, Friends of Lakeside
Yeah.
Park,
Yes,
and truthfully, it applies to other parks as well. That's something that, perhaps this committee can work towards in the future too.
Well, and it's something to think about as we're planting ornamental gardens and those things. The town staff's not gonna be able to take care of those. So if that's getting turned over for us to weed and take care of, they're probably gonna get turned into what other parks look like that are easy maintenance stuff,
Yeah.
so.
But Meredith, you just heard Ed say that the town will maintain the park.
Yes,
That's,
but he's also saying, low maintenance.
Within
And I've
limits.
pushed low maintenance all along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a friends group down the road is probably a good idea. I would speak to Cindy Heath, who was Director of Parks and Recreation in Lebanon for so many years, and Henry Holmeyer's wife, for advice on that. Lakeside is unique among the parks. The sports aren't played there. Other than you consider kayaking, where the ball field, the Shaker Ball Field and Hughes Park, they have a different characteristics about them. This park is unique, and I've always seen it as the gateway to Enfield Village. As you come over that bridge and you see this beautiful area, natural area,
I think that,
it's a welcome to Enfield.
well, it's certainly being heavily used, during at least the, spring, summer, late spring,
Even
early
in the winter.
summer, early fall, and less so, but certainly quite a bit in the winter.
Isn't also, Mascoma Lakeside Park also going to be generating some income for the town, though? I mean, it may not balance out, but we talked about.
That was the original goal,
And
certainly.
then I would assume there'll be events, and I assume that any money for
Rentals.
these things
Yeah.
would go towards the town and towards the managing of the.
Exactly.
But I don't know how that will sugar out, and right now it's probably not much.
The current situation is that for Enfield residents, doing basically a nonprofit, non-charge, event, there's no charge at all, so therefore no income to the town. And that applies to all of the parks.
And pretty
But
much
for a
that's-
party, for instance, if somebody wanted to have a wedding or a birthday party and they wanted to rent the place,
But nobody's done that yet, or?
well, there have been there have been a couple of weddings there, believe it or not, but I think that was before
I think that was all unofficial.
it was just, seat of the pants kind of thing.
You
So-
can book the park, you can book the pavilion online now through the rec
Mhm.
department site, and there's no charge. But you have to be a resident of the town
There is a charge like there is for the community building for non-residents.
for non-residents. But is it available to non-residents at this point? I thought-
I don't know quite what the
Yeah.
balance is. We'd have to talk to Kevin, explore that with Kevin.
Yeah.
But, residents clearly have priority.
Upper Valley Land Trust, for instance, uses the pavilion from time to time for board meetings. They love coming there. And they've waived the fee. It's a nonprofit and, it's a win-win situation because it's the land trust. So I think nonprofits, even if they're not Enfield residents, can use the pavilion, but Kevin's in charge of all of that. I'd like to move on to the Mirsky Memorial Grove. Patty and I went over and took some measurements. Was it Sunday, a blustery day, Patty?
I think it was Sunday.
And we measured down from the center point of the rail trail, the 40 feet. And it looks like there's 13 feet at the bottom from the pathway, the gravel pathway up on that slope. What we would like to see there is the grove with a bench, 3 to 5 trees. We're not sure. We're looking to Mike Burns to recommend. And then some strategically placed rocks there for people to sit on. Patty experienced that hillside during old home days, and it was hotter than hell. And shade would be very beneficial there. At our last meeting, Ed mentioned, the neighbors might not like it. Well, it turns out the neighbors, the critical neighbor, loves the idea of trees being planted there. to mask her view of the pavilion. So in a way, it would be a gift to Leslie. And yes,
I was thinking 13 feet is a narrow, but do you gain some width as you move away from the pavilion, so to speak?
I don't know, that would take measurements, but we did measure straight out. I know you can't come down the hill for these measurements. Patty stood at one end and I stood at the other. There were a couple of other locations, but not as preferable as this particular one.
Yeah, there's not a lot
So
around.
you're
but-
talking about what's currently the grass hillside?
The grassy,
Yeah.
the grassy knoll, if you will.
Okay.
And if we went in closer to that grove of trees that's there now, that might help.
Yeah.
But, it is a little tight and I'm just trying to see if I have a drawing here that we could look at, but yeah. I did send Mike, Burns an email and asked him what he would recommend for trees there, knowing there's not a lot of space.
Yeah.
And maybe Penny, you might have some feedback on that, but, yeah, so trees also that would not be messy because of that area, so.
No oaks.
Yeah, oh, oh.
And I did, the other spot, so it was very hot, very uncomfortable, and the good exercise was observing the other people who were there for Old Home Day, and they were all headed to that one tree that's on the east side of the pavilion. There's we kind of did some work to clear around that, but there were a couple of families clustered around that, and then, but anybody sitting on the north side of the pavilion was sitting in the really hot sun, yeah. So, when we were there, we thought that the Mirsky Grove could give us that shade. Those trees could give us some shade there, or also when people set up in the pavilion, that they recognize that where they set up in the direction of the sun does make an impact on people. So, and then the other thing too was, if we look at Mike Burns' plans, there are a couple of spots there, but it's hard because again, we don't know exactly what the wetland situation is. And, but that could also be potentially a good site for his memorial grove a little bit further in. So, and then in Paul's drawings, he actually, we didn't talk about this when we were out there, but if you're walking towards the pavilion, from the parking area, Paul had thought about doing a whole row of red maples along there, but, we could maybe just do a few near where the electrical box is also, and that could kind of cover that, but that could be a place that would also give shade. It would provide shade, so, yeah. So I guess the thing is, we'll just wait to hear if, Mike Burns thinks we can fit a small grove in that area.
If not, we could perhaps still consider the sitting rocks to sit on.
Yeah.
Patty, with a smaller footprint, one thing to consider is trees that are more urn shaped, because then you get your shade, but you don't have to have a lot of them. So you could have 3.
Yeah.
And they would provide, depending on the particular tree, considerable amount of shade.
Yeah.
And something like a red maple has that nice shape, and red maples are just stunning in
Yeah,
the fall.
That'd
And
be great.
people like them.
And Paul did put many red maples in the plan.
He
so
loved red
we're
maples.
seeing that, so that's kind of a nice nod.
Yeah,
The other trees that he had on that plan are, a little more exotic, red maples, a ginkgo, I think he had on there too.
the ginkgo, I don't think it's native.
Right, they're beautiful, but, and
Yeah.
those he had placed at the front of the park. So that's something to think about too, is that once the parking area is done in the front of the park, the entrance, there'll be a space there to plant some,
Yeah,
and the trees would probably really help to cool the parking area. So that might be a place to think about it as well.
So am I hearing that the landscape committee will continue to work with Mike Burns on this? And is there a timeline?
Well, I was gonna ask you that, Meredith, for when do you, if this is the Memorial Grove to Paul Mirsky, what's your feeling on when it should happen? And we have the money, right? So,
Yeah, this money is independent and separate from the Land and Water Conservation Grant. This is separate
yeah,
people that have donated, and I would like to say, I didn't agree with Paul Mirsky on most things. But on land conservation and historic preservation, we were one and the same. The outpouring of support from all political spectrums has been amazing. Democratic Representative Susan Almy, for instance, donated $250. Now, Susan and Paul are like, you know, opposite ends of the spectrum.
So they both like to argue.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was kind of interesting in a commentary on what people thought of Paul Mirsky.
So are we looking
The
at
best time to
spring
plant
next year?
trees is now?
They always say that, but I don't think so.
spring or fall.
Yeah,
Yeah, spring, the ground is tough to deal with, right? Till it thaws.
but if you don't get the plantings in before the earth starts to freeze up, the roots don't get a chance to establish. I've never had luck with.
So it'd be like
I think it's too,
September.
it sounds like
Yeah.
it's too late for this year.
This year,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think so too, and we do have to take into consideration that the park is about to undergo a pretty major
Right,
renovation with the parking, so just figuring all that in, so that if we do the Grove, it doesn't get damaged with, you know, the construction of the trail on the other side of the.
I think that's a real consideration.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
right in the
So
middle,
next
and I
fall,
know
maybe.
you might talk to Mike, but I know when he was talking a little bit about, bringing in big equipment for the trail stuff, in a way, it was a little scary to me to hear about his vision of how much earth moving and stuff is gonna happen. But I think because it's right in the middle and it's right beside the pavilion, they're gonna need to move around the
Yeah.
pavilion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And, it's the only place to move around the pavilion that I can think of.
I don't think there's any rush on this. And remember that the money isn't gonna go bad.
Right.
It's sitting there, gathering interest. So, I think,
as
it
long
would
as,
be-
as long as we can tell the donors that the plan would be
Yeah,
next fall.
yeah,
and I love the idea of the red maples, so
yeah, I do too.
it's nice to even for them to know that we've chosen the type of tree, and it's just a matter of where we can put it in the park and.
And so far, they don't have any blights or worms or nematodes.
Crazy attacking the red maples. Yeah,
Don't
okay.
plant too many together, that's right.
Okay, the infrastructure committee, I'd like to give Ken Warren a big hooray
Yeah.
for staining the
Yeah, it looks great.
kiosk. It was a big improvement, Ken. And not only that, we have a celebrity in our midst with Ken. Did everybody see his picture in the Valley News pulling weeds at the park?
That's not my better side.
Do we have more of the stain left? Couple
It
of,
does look like we sort of ran out of stain when I looked at it carefully.
There
The,
we go.
yeah,
the boards up on the top and where it
there's,
says Mascoma Lakeside Park. I think that whole thing should be painted since some of the paint has gotten on the wood anyway.
okay, well,
Take all the-
we certainly can do that if there's no, but Ken, is there more of the stain left, or was that,
I can't hear you with them.
was there more of the stain left?
Yeah, and it's in a garage up here. It's been labeled,
Okay,
Oh,
so we
so
can go
we,
right
we,
to
we,
it.
we can
Touch
use that next spring.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, so we have to
But-
do both. So I don't know if we have to do the front part there where the plywood is, or if that's.
yeah, I would take all the notices off
Yeah.
and do the red
Yeah.
because
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of
you
lovely.
see where the line isn't very clean.
Right,
Yeah,
Just do it. And
Yeah.
then there's boards up on the top and
there's a few
underneath that
places, there's,
also
yeah.
need to be touched
I think
up.
it's a huge improvement.
looks
but,
great.
yeah,
It is.
proof of, definite proof of concept.
What was interesting about the weeding is I bike over here quite a bit. And I said, well, I'll help pull some weeds. So this went on for about 2 or 3 days. And one day I'm sitting there And this young woman is going, taking pictures like machine guns. And finally I said, who the hell are you?
Is that Kelly?
So evidently it didn't make the paper, but it made the internet. Yeah. It's interesting.
That's great. It was the paparazzi after you.
Yeah. Well, we've killed the removal of the tire marks at the pavilion to death. I just am tired of the scent.
I don't think anybody has found a solution to that as yet.
I talked to Jim Taylor, and so Ed had mentioned something that took rubber skid marks off of concrete, and Jim researched it, and it was for removal of tire marks at airports, and it was gonna be a chemical that was far too toxic to be used in proximity to the lake, so. I have mentioned it to Jim several times, and he did research that product, so.
And the idea of like restaining it in a dark color, is that a
I've thought about that.
possibility?
Yeah.
I don't know whether you can do that, but
I think the Eva path, the handicap ramp that goes up to the Eva office, the stain was added to the concrete at the time they put the concrete in.
okay.
And I think anything else acts like a paint.
There was a sealant put on the concrete,
There
so
was.
it's gonna interfere with the penetration of anything. It would have to be essentially abraded off, rubbed off, mechanically in order to get down to below the sealant, in order to add either a latex stain or an acid. So the sealer that's on there now is interfering with the application of anything on top of it.
So put a picnic table directly over them.
They're all over the place.
I read today that the secret ingredient in WD-40 is fish oil. I wonder how fish oil would work.
Mm. I wonder, has anybody ever tried using a metal brush on it?
That would probably scrape up the
I
sealant too.
don't know. That's what I had read, like a heavy degreaser with a metal brush.
Yeah.
But
Might
if you do
work.
that, you also run the risk of longer term damage to the cement if you don't reseal it.
Mm.
And
I know the sidewalks in town, when the DOT did all that work, the fake brick sidewalks, that was a treatment that they put on top of the concrete. But it's for fake brick and it's all wearing off, and maybe it's on asphalt. I guess it's on asphalt, but it's not successful.
keep our antennae up and see if we find something promising, we
Yeah.
can explore it, but I don't think we can,
Maybe we're just gonna have to live with it.
unfortunately.
Patty, do you want to talk about the, fall garden cleanup?
Sure, we have a workday scheduled for Monday, November 13th, 9 AM to 11 AM. If anyone wants to join us, that would be great. We're gonna cut back the gardens, basically put them to bed. And then at one meeting, we all discussed maybe at a workday, cleaning the tables and benches, so I'll figure out how to do that. I guess we'll bring spray or something.
Yeah, something like
Yeah, it's just mainly-
Murphy's oil soap
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, I don't, so we can assign a couple volunteers to that.
I'm
so
good with a scrub brush.
That sounds good. Yeah, so I did send out a call to action on the listserv and then social media and to our corporate volunteers, Hypotherm and Mascoma. But I didn't send it to Liberty Utilities because this is gonna be pretty low key. We're just cutting
Mhm.
back gardens and they're like into the more aggressive invasive removal, so we'll wait.
Big time.
Yeah, so we'll wait for that. Yep, that's about it.
Is there anything more that you need for planning?
Well, for planning the workday, no, I mean, I think I'm just waiting to confirm with DPW that they'll pick up our debris. I haven't heard back from them yet, and if they can't pick it up, because I know they sort of stopped taking that debris out at a certain point, and then we'll figure out a way to get it to lab, but there won't be a lot.
And it's plant debris. It's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
branches and
Yeah,
tree
it's
limbs.
it's pretty low key. We're just cutting back the perennials and basically, and, getting the, that's really all we're gonna do. I don't have any intention of I don't have anything to plant anyway, so, there's a few plants that maybe we could, dig up and split and keep them in the same beds, just to kind of spread color, and we could maybe do that as well. Well, I'll see how many people.
Time wise,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that,
Patty, do
yes.
you want to, cut back the, locusts that have come back, some of the locusts that have come back just to, because while they're removing debris,
So-
cut those back.
I think really with those, rather than cut them, I'd love to see if we could use the weed pullers and pull them up from the root, because they're not
Ideally.
super big. The only problem with that area is it's the poison ivy area. And I can't, I promised my family I'm not gonna go near the poison ivy, so I don't, but I can, so, yeah, so that's.
Did you
that-
write a legal document to that accord?
I pretty much.
She had a sign.
Yeah, and but I. do-
Supervise from a distance.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that is a perfect workday for the Liberties people.
Mhm.
And, so we're kind of the season's running low, but if somebody else wanted to maybe look at the calendar and see if there was a date that we could contact Liberty and see if they could come, and we could certainly get the tools from the Upper Valley True Alliance so that they could get those out. But I think if we keep cutting them, we're gonna just have to keep cutting them. But if we try to actually get them out, that might be a little bit wise.
Why I was avoiding that wasn't because of the poison ivy.
Yeah. It's, unfortunately, there's poison ivy in that area.
Let's make that a special project for Liberty Utilities.
Yeah, 'cause they're not afraid of poison
No.
ivy. So,
Maybe they're all immune.
yeah, I probably, but, so that's, yeah.
So you'll approach Liberty?
If we want to do, do we want to try to do that before the end of this year? I don't personally, I don't know that I can find.
So that would be in
Sounds
the
like you
spring
need another
probably.
volunteer to take that
Yeah,
on.
if somebody wants to do a work day with
Okay.
Liberty, I'm happy to work with you to get in touch with the Liberty people. But yeah, unfortunately,
I think it's gonna be it.
yeah, I think that, when I looked at the priorities, cutting those perennial beds back, I think is most important, just because it will look. And it's nice to leave plants up, but I think in a public venue like that, the leaving things we'll leave that more to natural spaces as opposed to the formal bed, so, yeah.
Do you want to say anything about the Master Gardener program? this
Yeah,
year?
so I would love to actually, because, so we had, the UNH Extension had a class at the park. They had an entomologist from the state came, and it was great. So there were 19 Grafton County, Master Gardener students who came, and it gave me a chance to show them the park and talk about our projects that are coming up. The Native American Garden, the Pollinator Garden, kind of working on the area down by the boat launch that needs kind of some restoration. And so what happens is they'll all need internships, just like I needed an internship and this park was mine. They're all gonna need internships. And so those individual projects could be internships. It's a really good way to get someone who will kind of take ownership, plan it, work with volunteers, make sure that the gardens are maintained. So what has to happen is we just have to write up project proposals for each kind of individual project, and then that would get approved. And then UNH Extension would post those as internship opportunities. So yeah, it is a very good way to have.
Quality.
Are they supervised by UNH?
Yeah, so you do have a supervisor through UNH, yeah. And Grafton County has their own extension master gardener supervisor, Judith. Her name is Judith Holland. They are so it's not typical for municipalities to work with master gardener projects. It's usually schools, nursing homes. So UNH Extension loves this project because it shows that a municipality and the extension can work together. So I think that it's a really good way to provide this town with some help, and even also broader, like in a friend, kind of a gardening group, some kind of a more formal, because other towns are doing that. And there was two Lebanon Master Gardener students who came and, they're doing lots of things in Leb too. So it kind of shows you like the potential of having an organized group.
Is there a natural local liaison?
Pardon?
Is there a natural local liaison? You, Penny, I know.
So for the UNH extension, yeah, it would be me. I'll write the project proposals, and we just did one for a rain garden project for the town, and there's a little bit of work that has to go into it, but it's not hard. And we know we're gonna do the Native American garden. We know we're gonna do a pollinator garden. And if there's any other,
I think of two others.
Yeah.
You could probably do something like a shoreline garden, of native shoreline shrubs and perennials.
yeah,
I know some that like blue flag and marsh marigold that aren't emphasized that much, but are really fantastic for us to kind of what you call almost advertise and
Yeah.
promote.
Yeah.
And then the other one is a fern garden.
Yeah.
Because both of those are so compatible with our very special
Yeah.
environment.
yeah, certainly. And actually the signage piece too, like we could put in a project that we want someone to do the signage, the educational signage. So it just, and yes, and Penny, I found a wetland seed mix. It's a mix of native seeds to put in areas just like that, that we can talk about. They're not expensive, and it's a good option.
In reading about that, the challenge is actually finding somebody who will germinate them and start them as seedlings because they don't do well.
These you would scatter.
Well, you could do it, but the amount of germination you're going to get is very low.
Yeah, this is a mixed use. Municipalities use this mix. It's through the, I have the information, but it's a pretty successful mix. There's a lot of grasses in it,
Well,
local
that's just my
grasses.
point.
So
Then you get
would
different
these
stuff.
be next spring or after the construction is?
I think they would be sowed in the fall. So, but it's an option for that area. But yeah, I think that area could also be a project for someone.
Doug?
Penny just lit a bulb in my head. One of the ongoing, most difficult aspects of this park is clearing the brush away from the waterfront and replacing it with acceptable plantings. Would that be a project to find out what the working with the DES to do an acceptable legal way of attacking that problem, so we could go right down the shoreline and do it systematically, knowing that we were in compliance with all of necessary regulations.
Yeah, that whole buffer area.
If some gardener
Yeah.
had that whole thing
Oh,
in.
Yeah.
They pretty much spell it out. I mean, yeah, that's not an unknown. It's Native American, native plants that are shoreline plants. And so
But don't you have to, every time you attempt it, you have to get new approvals?
I don't think so.
DES?
I think as long as you're within the criterion, which is that, you're removing things that are appropriate to be removed, which
Yeah.
is invasives or pretty much just invasives or things that
Okay,
you're going to
well, maybe we
replace.
have what we need already. but-
Yeah.
And if it's not invasive, but it's just too tall,
Yeah,
Too close together.
yeah, you can cut it down so you can see over it. As long as
The
you're not pulling up the roots.
seed mix that I was talking about is actually this is all geared towards areas where you've done an invasive removal specifically. Because part of it was doing the research for this presentation that they'll do at the municipal managers meeting in Manchester, is telling these the DPW guys, like what their options are for when, and so the seed mix is it's highly successful and it's made, I think it was developed for logging in Maine.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really like, I think a good affordable for us at the park, like for these areas, just like what Doug's talking about, where we'll go in and we'll remove the non-native invasives, and then if we spread these seed mixes, and some of them are for shrubs too, Penny, which is very interesting. Like some of these mixes actually have some So, some of the native shrubs and then the plants would come up, so, but it's if we found someone who had a lot of interest in shoreline protection, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, because it really looks junky, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure it's all invasive.
Well,
I
and
think a lot of it's native.
that's the concern with something like just a seed mix, is that you then don't have any control over what you're going
Oh,
to
no.
end up looking like.
They're super, I'll send you the link. You'll see, it's not like you're not, these mixes don't have hundreds of varieties. These mixes have 6 varieties.
Mhm.
And so you're getting a lot of, a few, like, like I said, the native sedges, they call them sedges.
Oh,
the little-
sedges are great.
Yeah, lots of native sedges which is a grass that grows, they're already at the park. They're there.
Sounds like you're on the landscape committee, have a lot of work. to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of plant decisions.
I wonder if this is something that the Mascoma Lake Association would be interested in partnering.
And
with us.
helping with.
Yeah.
Well, that would be great.
And sending volunteers.
Yeah.
They don't have the volunteers for that, really, do they?
Well, I think that the
Well,
Lake
you can
Association
spread
has
it.
always
They-
sent volunteers, that people from the Lake
They can
Association
publicize
show
it.
up.
They can
And-
certainly
and-
publicize it, yeah.
Yeah, so we include them on our workday distribution, call to action, whatever you want to call it. I always send Martha, and I post it to their social media, so people from the Lake
And they do
Association
show up,
show
yeah.
up, yeah. I think we could have like a targeted workday for something like that, you know, like that, but and that's a perfect workday for our Liberties people, because again, like, they're just used to climbing in all that brush and,
Experts.
yeah, so, yeah,
Okay.
I wish there were more, I wish there was a whole nother month in the season, but
Well, we've been blessed so far with the weather.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it's turned cold,
Was snowing today.
but it's time for it to be cold.
Yeah.
My mother always said it kills the bugs.
It doesn't
I
kill the
hope-
ticks, which are
No.
unbelievable.
Okay, does anyone have anything else that they would like to discuss?
so I have one thing. So I think I found, so I missed several meetings and I went to look back to kind of bring myself up to date with what happened. And I realized how important it was to have really good meeting minutes, to help understand what was going on, and also the availability of seeing the meeting. But it got me to thinking that as this next year is going to be really busy for us as things are happening at the park.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering if we don't have a permanent person to take meeting minutes, if it's something we can, put the town, and I feel bad because I know we're talking about the park costing money town, but
Yeah.
could the town maybe help us with having someone take meeting minutes? So that's
That's a
what I
good
want to bring
question.
up.
I can ask Ed, we don't have a town budget right now. In other
Mhm.
words, commissions such as the Heritage Commission and the Conservation Commission, we're not a commission, we're an advisory board.
Okay.
I don't know how that works. A ZBA has somebody that takes minutes, planning board has somebody that takes minutes. And I will have to check on that.
Do you know how much, a minute taker, recording and stuff like that costs for meetings? My guess would be a couple $100 a meeting.
Robin, planning and zoning, they have, someone who's contracted to do that. Rob would know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Same with the select board. There's somebody there that takes the minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
Something to think about.
Yeah,
I think the budget committee has somebody too, don't they?
yeah, all the
All of
official committees.
Yeah.
And
But the advisory committees don't, as far as I know.
I've been taking the minutes for the Heritage Commission ever since it began because no one was willing to take them. So I chair the meeting and take the minutes. That's why I'm not going to do it for this.
Is it possible to recruit a volunteer to join the committee as secretary?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, keep everybody think there's
Yeah.
maybe somebody.
So they don't know in advance that that's gonna
Yeah,
be there.
yeah, your responsibility.
Yeah.
And what I've been
Meetings and take
doing
minutes.
during this meeting is, sort of scribbling what I consider an appendix to official minutes, which are just a summary of the topics, decisions, who's responsible, and timeline, for those topics that we discussed. I'm not sure it's entirely complete, but, I can pass this around for what we've done this meeting, and you can see if that makes sense to you, at least as a starting point.
Patty is taking minutes for this meeting.
Yeah, this is a supplement to that. This is
Yeah.
something,
I mean, I think for follow-up things like that, that actually could be a helpful thing. And because sometimes it's hard, many of us are working on different pieces, so, yeah.
My dirty little secret for taking minutes at the Heritage meeting is to take the agenda, copy it, and then use it. So I go right down the agenda and fill in the blank.
Mhm.
So I have an outline
Mhm.
ahead of time, and that's worked well.
Okay.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
Pass it this way or?
this is what I did so far for this one.
Okay, let's see what I've got to do.
You got the whole bottom part.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, yeah. Right.
The next meeting would be
Thanks.
December 6th.
So we will continue to meet on Wednesdays. That will be and it's the first Wednesday of the month.
Yes, the reason being that Ed has some other pressing meeting that's on Tuesdays. And that's why we had to change it, unless Ed changes his meeting schedule.
So that's all right. That's,
And they will be at DPW from here on in,
okay.
because Whitney Hall is about to be demolished.
Not demolished, I hope.
No, not demolished, but a pretty
Renovated.
Renovating,
major renovation.
which is,
I think that's it. Oh, this is yours.
The agenda.
Move to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll just keep it. Just
Did you move to adjourn? David did.
We both did, I think, about the
Okay.
same time.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Liam.
That's.